Our online stuff is ready. Okay. So in the agenda, we're gonna move number 12 up to, right after number 6. Be about the only thing to move that feel-good one up. So I will take a motion for the approval of the agenda. So Doug, with that change,
With that change, yeah.
is there a second? Second, Tracy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting,
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from our last meeting.
July 21st. Second. Second for Doug. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Any public comment? We have nobody on over here, okay. Anybody up in the West Conference Room now? None. Anybody on phone?
Any callers want to provide public comment?
Is there just a few? All right, then we'll close public comment. Conflict of interest, that's when that'll come up. Number 6, there's no other supervisor except for Mr. Nelson, and that's, we're gonna discuss that now. Actually, we could have done it. then,
Oh,
too.
so you ready for it now?
Yes, because then, yeah, because under number 6 and number 12 will run together for you.
Okay.
So, yeah, so then, on resolution 3921. And that's from Mr. Nelson.
You want me to go up front or right here? Do you care? In here?
I think you're fine here. Can they see? As they can see and hear you. Sure.
Yeah, so after last county board meeting, there was a lot of public comments again. And one struck me in particular, and I've had a lot of calls this month on both sides of this issue, mostly on the CAFO side, you know, that the county's still not doing enough. And one particular young man from Frederick kind of, I felt like out of all of them, you know, he didn't get up and say, hey, we weren't doing our jobs. You know, we're not doing nothing. You know, he just came out and says, why don't you guys do more? You know, why don't you do at least what you did on some of the lobby resolutions for funding, like we're doing with some of the meth and some of the other resolutions we're asking the state to fund. So I work with Corporation Council to try to still stay within the bounds of us not getting with creating a resolution where we got to go back to work on this and using staff time. And we created this funding resolution. And, you know, it kind of goes through in the whereas clauses where, you know, we talk about that the CAFOs have potential to negatively impact groundwater and air quality. So we address that in this. There's fear into the community. So clearly we're hearing the community say, hey, we have concerns with this. It talks about the air quality issues and groundwater quality issues. So it talks about our concerns with that. It talks about the Supreme Court ruling on more regulatory and possible well monitoring, groundwater monitoring. It talks about, you know, that the county is limited on their ability. And I think that's very important, again, to get the word out that the county can only do so much with this thing, you know, and it really lays in the state's hands and DADCAP, but we did what we could. It talks about the community still has concerns that we didn't go far enough, and that the CUP process is not sufficient. And so it talks about, you know, why we did that. And then and it talks also then, it really what it's doing is it's sending a message to the governor and the legislators to actually, because what we hear is that the state really can't get to this. And I even heard this from Big Ag that say it's the same thing. They wait till the last day to issue even a renewal on an existing CAFO. And these guys these guys wait. And then the last day, it's like, oh, we're so busy, here's your renewal. And they're saying, just being in limbo to the very last day where they've had their paperwork in for months. So both sides are saying the DNR and DATCAP really don't have enough staffing. So that's all it does. It basically is a lobbying resolution to increase funding to both the agencies and to put adequate monitoring and making sure they can regulate that. So it's not meant to beat up on ag, but I'm sure some will take it that way a little bit, just a hunch. So that's what it is. And, I just thought it would be something good for the county board to get behind and to kind of meet a few of the comments that I've been hearing. So that's all it is.
Okay. Any questions in this one? Any questions in this one?
Really, I got here just barely in time.
Oh, yes, you did that.
We were trying to
Moving it up so you can hear it's a whole thing for you. It's on the back.
Well, I
It's on
think,
the
to
back.
me, it looks again, and I understand what it is, but once again, we sit out here, beating up on agriculture because we think they're apparently the only polluters in the state. When realistically, there's all kinds of them, but that's my speech for today.
But with more staff, they would get other polluters too. I mean,
Yeah, we're not-
claiming they're understaffed.
Yeah, we're not saying to look for other.
But it does say all types of potential contaminants, including but not limited to CAFOs.
So
All right,
I'm still working.
let's not jab them any harder. We don't have to push the beast, anyone else.
Can we be swine specific though?
That's a good question.
They ask us not to be, don't they? Pretty much the state says you can't be
I mean, that's
specific.
just the thing. If we limit it to being swine specific, is that going to push them in another direction and say, well, we can't be specific? If it was CAFO in general, we could lobby for a CAFO in general,
That's kind of
but
what
we
this is,
can't be, you know what I mean?
but it's reference to the swine also in
Right.
there, but
But we just took that swine, there's only one reference to swine, just take that
I
out.
mean, because it almost is like you're singling somebody out, you know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
if you reference it as
The chair.
the
So-
K's and,
So
yeah,
if you read the last, so if you go to the last, the top talks about, because the community is about swine specific, but I know we're not supposed to be, but,
Yeah.
we already passed our CUP swine specific.
yeah,
But when you read the last, be it resolved, so that Polk County Board of Supervisors hereby urge the state of Wisconsin adequately fund Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection so they can vigorously monitor and regulate all the existing and future CAFOs to the full extent of its authority. Be it further resolved that the Polk County Board of Supervisors urges the state legislator and the governor to fully fund the various regulatory agencies, so that they have the resources they need to adequately monitor and regulate CAFOs. So,
it says it at the bottom, but you know how people are, Chris. They're gonna read the top portion of something and go,
Yeah.
oh, it's a specific.
yeah,
You know what I'm
and that
saying?
was intentionally put in there to be on those things that really don't mean much. It just kind of lays out the framework on why we got to it. It's the bottom one that is the authority. So, am I correct on that? Leah?
Well, right, so the whereas clauses generally are like you laying the foundation of how we got to where we are, and then the therefore be it resolved, those are the action items.
the action
of it.
item.
But
Okay.
yeah,
We did talk about that to try to make sure we weren't at the end there telling the state to be swine specific. So that's why it was left out at the bottom. But you're right, we can't be.
So the whereas is just stating the fear that's here
Yeah,
around swine.
Yeah.
right.
Any other questions? Basically, it'll be discussed at the full board too. It's just basically for us to, as a committee, do we want to push it forward or not?
Yeah, with a
So,
recommendation or
with
if
a
it just- if it's
recommendation
gonna
and
go with whether you recommend it or you don't or whatever, I just had to bring it to a committee.
I'll make a motion to send it to the county board without a recommendation. We discussed that.
What, Brad?
Uh,
I couldn't hear the
Oh.
without.
to just send it to the county board without a recommendation for or against, just to send it.
Rather send it with.
Okay, then don't second it. Is there a second? I tell you what to do, but that's how you get around it. If there's no second, Doug, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we send it to the county board with the.
That we would like it?
Yeah.
There's a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second by Sharon. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed.
Thanks for moving it up, Chair.
Yep. Okay, so it's moved to the board. All right. So we'll have Jason, we're on time. I had two of them. That's why I gave it to you. You can flip it over. Yep, go ahead. We'll open it up. Have you read it? Yeah, we'll open it up.
The public hearing at 9:15.
Yeah.
We have two public hearings. The first one, as published on the agenda, will be for Deborah Fole, requesting a rezone from residential Ag 5 to recreational business commercial B2 for an area 450 feet by 968 feet located in the southeast of the southwest and partly in the southwest of the southwest of Section 6, Town 33 North, Range 18, or Range 15 West, Town of Clayton. Parcel numbers affected are parcel 016-00121, 0000, and 016-00122, 0000. And the area to be rezoned is 10 acres. The map in that here shows the two properties in that we're looking at. The Bulls own a 19-acre property here and a 39-acre property there for a total of 59 acres. A lot of this area here is all mapped as mapped wetland, but this pond here is navigable. The area here in the middle of that 40, that's where the Bulls currently operate mud bog. They went through and obtained a conditional use permit in 2018 to have 4 mud bogging events per year out there. As part of that conditional use, they asked to be able to do camping out there. And so there's a maximum of 100 campers allowed during those 4 events out there. I believe that the Bulls are requesting to rezone this portion and that to have a permanent campground and that, which would be why it's zoned recreational business commercial, because a campground isn't allowed use when it's zoned that way. The closest neighbors are roughly a quarter mile away. Actually, this one here would be probably the closest, and these two here. Otherwise, in that there's nothing behind it, and we're about a 40 to the north, right there, before we have another neighbor. Pretty much all the land surrounding this area is zoned residential Ag 5. Range is about 1.5 miles to the north of there. That'd be the closest commercial by like Duck's Bar Grill. Access to the property for the campground is off from County Road D, which is coming in through the field here and going into the back. So the ordinance states minimum standards in that for travel trailer parks. So the Bulls would have to take and make sure that their campground complies. Some of those requirements are that the travel trailer park should be a minimum of 5 acres, which they have that. The number of travel trailers is 15 per acre is the maximum. Each site has to be 25 by 40 at least as a minimum. They have to be separated by at least 15 feet of yard in between the trailers. They have to provide 1.5 parking spaces for each trailer site. There's a minimum setback of 40 feet from any exterior property lines. So that whole north line, there'd be 40 feet there that they wouldn't be able to have any campers. And they have to take and comply with public health, because anytime you have over or 3 or more campsites, you have to take and have a public health license. So that would be one of the requirements that they would have to do. The town has supported the rezone request on condition that there be a sunset clause for any ownership transfer, so that it would revert back to RA5 zoning if it was to be sold. And the county has sent out proper class 2 notice prior to this hearing and published it in the paper as well. We have not received any other letters of support or objection at this time. As far as exhibits, we have an exhibit of the map area to be rezoned, and then the town minutes will be exhibited.
Questions of Jason?
Yep. How many campers will be allowed in that space then? You said
Oh.
one.
And that there's 10 acres being rezoned. Portion of it is pond though. And so there's gonna be a setback around the pond. So that's gonna cut down the number of acres that's possible quite a bit. But without doing a survey, it's pretty hard for us to describe that area. So that's why it's square. But basically outside of that setback area, they can have 15 per acre. So,
Okay.
but then we got 40 feet coming across. So it's 450 feet north to south here. And then the 968 feet is east to west. But then they're gonna have a 40-foot setback off from the north line, and then they're gonna have a 75-foot setback around that pond. So they say that they're gonna lose acres probably just because of that.
When you said there was no support, or was that the board too?
No, the board supported it, and that there's no other letters of support or objection that came in as part of the notice from like the neighbors. So, yep.
This is just the zoning.
Yeah, right.
Yep, okay. Is there anybody here? Okay.
Can we put a condition on a rezone?
No.
That it sunsets?
On the
We
zone.
have-
On this, I think we can, yeah. that is.
The issue is that they can have a challenge to enforce that because we don't have a good way to track that. So it really falls back on like the property owners around them and that to take and come through and say, hey, this is supposed to revert back, and then it'd be an enforcement issue. So, but we do have other ones like that. So.
Yeah, because typically we can't put a
Put
condition on a
conditions, yeah.
rezone. Okay.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak for or against it? That's in the audience here. Or here, yeah.
If you have any questions for them?
Have any questions for them? It's pretty. Okay. So if there's no more questions, yes, we should be able to close this one then. Pretty much what you listed as you talked would be our findings and stuff.
But I've got for findings, for conclusion of law, the town has reviewed the proposed zoning district change with their comprehensive plan and has approved said zoning change with the sunset clause. The proposed zoning district change has been reviewed against the Polk County Comprehensive Plan and is suitable. The impact of local infrastructure should be minimal due to being served by the county highway. And that there's other commercial uses within a mile of the property. And the Bulls already operate under a conditional use permit for 4 mud bogging events per year with 100 campers per event.
If there's no question, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion that we accept the zone change.
Okay, Doug, is there a second?
Second that?
Brad.
That's with the sunset clause?
Yeah. Is there any other questions? If not, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. One's good to go. Want to sign them after we do the next one?
Sure. Yeah.
We
no,
can do both of them at the end.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay,
That'll work for me.
all right. So let's open up the next one, yeah.
All right, so the next public hearing is for John Matthews Builders LLC. Eric Hermanson is the representative, and they request a conditional use permit under section 42-237 parentheses D parentheses 4 Polk County Court of Ordinances to operate a transient lodge. Property affected is 1082 240th Avenue, Section 5, Town 35 North, Range 16 West, located in the town of Georgetown. Parcel ID number is 026 00090, 4 zeros, 1.03 acres. That size. Transient lodge, if you remember, this was part of our 2019 tourist rooming house and transient lodge ordinance amendment. A transient lodge allows for maximum occupancies overnight of more than 8. Tourist rooming house limits it to max of 8. Transient lodge goes from 9 to 20 occupants total. The property was previously permitted as a tourist rooming house, but that was revoked and that this spring due to an expired public health department license and that which expired last July. So we ended up pulling that permit. Now the applicant has come back and wants to reapply. That original tourist rooming house permit was issued in 2019, so they operated in that for a little over a year underneath that permit. At that time and now on this application and that there's 7 bedrooms in the dwelling. Property is zoned R1 because it's within 300 feet of the water. The sanitary system that was installed on the property was put in 1984 and is more than adequate of handling 7 bedrooms because this was part of the old Calderwood Lodge in that, and it's a very large sewer system. The property is not actually lakefront at all. It's got lots in that do go down to the lake, but the property in question is main lodge. There's no lake access, say, even though the same owners own the other 2 lots. There's no wetlands or floodplain on the property because of that. The dwelling is right at 300 feet off the lake. The access is via 240th Avenue. Boat coming in from the top. Sewer system lays in here along the old parking lot area. And the county has published a class 2 notice prior to this hearing and published it in the paper as well. And this would also require a public health license, but public health doesn't license them until after and that they get the zoning approval. So that's how their code is worded. As far as exhibits, we've only got the map and that's shown here of the property affected. And we've received no other letters of support or objection from any neighboring property owners. And that's what I've got for the staff report on it. I do have some proposed conditions if you are looking at granting.
Was there enough parking then for the 7 bedrooms? Does that parking lot?
There's a lot of room to park there.
On that south corner, does it meet the setbacks for a lodge?
Backs here,
Yeah,
Yes, it does. And
it
that,
does meet setbacks.
so they're required to have a 10-foot setback.
Sure, so it meets the setbacks, okay. Anyone else? Questions, Jason?
So since the health permit was revoked, what, has it still been operating?
I don't know, and that you'd have to talk to the applicant on that. We did issue a citation in that this spring on it. Public Health gave us a list of all the tourist rooming houses that expired in that last year, and then we followed up on them, and that's kind of how this all came back around. So underneath that existing permit in 2009, that was before the ordinance amendment had went through. It was 2 people per bedroom plus 2. So we didn't have the transient lodge in there at that option. So that's what has changed now, and that to come back for 14.
Well, I know that Kim asked this question, but at realistically 1 acre, there is enough room on the 1 acre to have enough vehicles for 7 rooms.
All right. Then is there-
Typically, in that, our ordinance requires a parking space of 180 square feet. So there's definitely enough gravel here, hard surface.
Is there anybody here to speak for or against it, or online too also, we should ask if anybody's.
I'm the owner, so.
Okay.
Or, again, any questions last time, where does the town stand?
This is a conditional use in that we haven't heard anything from the town, but we did notify the town. But they've been mute on it. So, yep.
Was there any questions of the owner then? If anybody? So we have no other comments online or anything. No? So pretty much we have some conditions. We have.
I have a
staff
staff
ones.
recommendation. Yep.
Let's go through those.
All the way down to the end.
So I think we'll leave it open to do this part in case we have questions or a few questions.
So staff recommendation would be to approve of the transient lodge conditional use permit on the following conditions. And the conditions in that are here are basically the same as what you would find in our tourist rooming house. Visions of the ordinance right now.
Many is there?
17.
17.
So the first one is really the only one that's different than, like I said, what we'd have for a tourist rooming house, and that's maximum occupancy. 14 people at any time. Basically, that's 7 bedrooms times 2 people per bedroom. So that's how I came up with that.
Okay.
Otherwise, these ones here are basically the same. And that accessory buildings not having any sleeping accommodations, no RVs or campers allowed for night stay. All parking must be on the impervious surface and must be contained on the property. That was a couple comments in that we had. Applicant must obtain all proper licensing. All fires and embers are to be extinguished by 11 with no unattended fires. Applicant must have 24-hour contact number available to the public. Property must remain free from citation and charges for nuisance, disorderly conduct, and other illegal activity. Quiet hours 11 to 7. That must comply with all other applicable laws and regulations. All pets must be contained on the property. The property lines must be surveyed and clearly marked. All conditions that apply to renters shall be included in the rental information or rental contract. Existing septic system to be inspected and approved before starting to operate. Any advertising shall have the land use permit number and the health department license number on it. Max rental of up to 24 weeks or 174 days per year. And must obtain a license through public health. That last one I threw in there too, just to make sure that's really clear, so.
Oh, sure, because you have the other one in there too, but that's okay. Any questions on the conditions?
I just have one question. Yeah. If my memory serves me right, when we were doing the tourist related housing permit, then there was a large room that like this, I mean, not quite this, there had cots in it, and they were considering that. That's all taken care of.
Well, that's where we're really gonna fall back on this occupancy, because it's at any time on the property that they're gonna be limited to the 14. So we don't really care where they sleep. That's more up to like Brian Hobbs to make sure that they got egress windows and stuff.
Yeah, that's all.
And that's so more than likely, and then knowing the size of that building, they're definitely not gonna have any problem with Brian though, because not an expert in his field, but basically for every adult and child, there's a cubic footage requirement in that they have to have. So like a 10 by 10 by 10 foot tall room is good, and that for 2 adults and a child. So it's 400, it's 400 cubic feet for an adult and 200 cubic feet for a child. 10 by 10 is not a very big bedroom, so anyway, so.
Yeah, room that we saw.
Now, does the owner, do you have any questions on these conditions that you can do or not do or whatever?
No.
This approval then hinges too on the public health giving their approval too, right?
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, until that passes. They don't get it.
We went through the public health and passed it, and there was like a reapplication that came out, and then with COVID, we got another notice that said that everything could get pushed out because of COVID happening. And when the next deadline came up, it just slipped through the cracks, and we forgot to resubmit it. What the lapse was.
Other question? If not, then we'll close the public hearing portion, and then we'll make a motion for or against it, conditions or not, and all that. See what it did. All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
Go ahead.
Moving on with these 17 conditions. Right. Okay. Yeah, he added the one, 17 conditions, okay.
That would be for transient lodge.
Lodge, yes. There's a second. Second. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Pretty much went through all the stuff, so the conditions, I think we should be fine. Jason.
Okay.
Sign our life away with these. That's all you have today, isn't it?
And the resolution, the county clerk should have on the rezone for Clayton.
I'll go and sign
Yep.
that part.
So that's all we need on that one.
You'll make your inspection.
I will.
You keep the plumbers happy out there.
Time to spare you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jump back then to, we'll go to Tim, number 7.
All right. Oh, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all again, as usual. Going to give you a quick and dirty update on the trail network plan. I think last time there was a briefing on how the deep dive events went when we were talking directly to those stakeholder groups in mid-July. Those went well. We've heard a lot of positive comments about them. You know, the fact that the county's taking steps to talk with these user groups directly and getting their feedback to try and incorporate that into the planning process here. We're still in the midst of this public input gathering session or section of the planning process here. Because you know, we have the survey, the online survey and the online web map that are out right now. Those will be out according to Alta until August 20th. Be out for still a few more weeks. In our meeting with Alta last Thursday, some preliminary numbers. We've had over 800 surveys filled out so far and over 500 comments for that web mapping piece. So pretty good results so far, considering it's only been open a couple weeks. Hoping that those levels of input and excitement about this planning process continue. Let's see. So the next steps, one of the things I wanted to cover with you, and I sent this out or handed this out to everyone this morning, is one of the missions we have in this trail planning process is to try to get some projects identified and some at least rough numbers available. It's kind of a quick push, but for you guys to consider during the budget process. So this trail network planning process, at a minimum, is going to identify one project per user. Again, those user groups are ATVs, UTVs, I can get them all right here, bicycling, pedestrians, cross-country skiing, equestrians, and snowmobiles. Yep. So at a minimum, one of those, maybe two of those projects. So in order to make that October county board deadline, kind of worked our way back and said, in order to get there, what's the process? What do we need to do? What kind of meetings do we need to have? So there's this tentative schedule in front of you here. Where we're at right now is the public input gathering section. Once that closes on the 20th, Alta will be looking at the results that they get from the web map and the survey, along with the feedback they got from the deep dive sessions. And anything they've heard in terms of like a project idea will become in a laundry list of project ideas. So we don't lose that. Any individual ideas that come up, we don't want those to get lost in this process. So that will come forward to the 3 committees that you see here on the left. So in September, PTAG, the ESC committee shortly thereafter, and then county board. So all 3 of you will get a chance to look at that laundry list and give some feedback. So what's your initial impressions of what works, what might not work, what seems reasonable, that kind of thing? Give that feedback to Alta. Okay, so Alta will take that feedback after those meetings of September and refine that project list, and they'll develop a prioritization matrix that will be used at PTAG. Say like, these are the things that we value, and this is how we're going to decide which is the top project for us to move forward. That will happen in a late September or early October PTAG meeting. That will be the primary focus of that meeting, is to look at that refined list, run it through the prioritization matrix, and come out with a recommendation to you guys as the ESC on what those 6 projects at a minimum be and what their kind of order of magnitude costs are. We're not going to be able to get super specific because we don't have the details about each individual project, which will come later, but we wanted to get at least ballpark figures for you guys to be able to allocate funds in the budget process for next year. That's why we're trying to push pretty hard on this, is to get the money moving, so that this can keep moving in next year right away. So after PTAG makes those recommendations on one project, at least per user group, they'll send those recommendations to you guys for your October 6th meeting. You guys will take a look at those prioritized projects and the costs associated with them. Review that and make your recommendation as to what you think is appropriate. Again, we still, for this project, need to make sure we have that one project per user. For the plan, whether or not you think that has to happen in 2022, it's up to you guys, but we need to have at least one project per user group identified for the plan. After that, the recommendation from here would go to general government on the 14th of October. They'll do the same thing, review what PTAG said, review what you guys said as your recommendations for the projects lists and costs, and make their approval or recommendations to the county board for the October 19th county board. Once those projects are identified, the rest of the planning process will mostly involve getting the specifics dialed in on those projects that have been identified. Say like exactly what's it going to look like, exactly where it's going to be, those kind of things. That's what we'll work with PTAG and ultimately you guys in the county board to decide. And obviously we'll have to have an actual plan document that supports all this and has all this information. So the goal of this project is to come away with those individual identified projects that are prioritized, but then also to keep that list of projects so we can say, hey, yeah, we accomplished this, so what's next? What are the other ideas that came from this planning process? How can we keep moving forward to keep that momentum of building trails in the county?
Some crossover. You know, a walking trail, bike trail, some of those go together.
Absolutely.
Different snowmobile ATVs, so some of the projects
Absolutely.
could be dual use. So
Yeah, we're going to have some individual projects and some shared use projects. Questions?
Will we see all the options? I mean, PTAG is going to send us one from each group, let's say. But if there's 3 or 4 options for each group, will we see all of those options?
Correct. Like you will see in September, early September, your September 15th meeting, you're going to see the laundry list of project ideas that came from Alta. So everything that they identified that came through the public input process.
Yeah, just so, I mean, let's just say this committee disagrees vehemently with PTAG's recommendation, and we say, you know, we think this should be instead of, you know, so that we see everything that's out there.
So you'll have a crack at making some feedback to Alta in September as to how you feel about those initial project lists. And then PTAG will be the initial thing for prioritizing and making a recommendation based on the prioritized projects, but ultimately they're a subcommittee for you guys, and you guys make the decision to recommend to the company. Yep.
all right.
Makes sense?
PTAG will actually prioritize each user group by what's turned in, and then they'll just bring it here for us and we can.
Yep, they're going to be the ones that have the prioritization matrix utilized in a meeting. You can see what the criteria is, however much you want to see on this. We're trying to be as transparent and open on this thing as possible. It's an idea to lift everyone up, give everybody a piece of the pie. That's the point.
It's nice to have a schedule like that to keep it going.
Thank you.
Park and Rec. Park and Rec, how we doing? Park and Rec. Okay, good.
Morning, just to give you updates on PTAG and the ATV, UTV committees. PTAG, there's no update on PTAG at this time. They meet. Haven't met yet. Last meeting. ATV meeting, the Sterling parking lot gravel is completed. That parking lot was completed and the new signage is up at the Sterling Loop for the ATV club. That's looking good. Yesterday, we talked about the Lorraine Trail and the development of that. The Snowmobile Council does have, is supportive of building that trail. Ben is now working with DNR to set up a meeting to go out there to see if it's actually plausible to make it through those wetlands, to see what kind of permitting is involved and what is needed. So that's in process also. The Cattail Trail. The Cattail Trail had several big, large washouts from the heavy rains we got last week and the week before. Those were fixed on Tuesday and seeded back down. And that'll be refunded by the DNR as a grant. They'll pay for those costs of repair on those ones. We did talk about the grading of the Cattail and options on pulling in some of the windrows from the outside and timing of that. So that'll be either this fall or next spring, working with the groups on that to get a better surface out there. We also talked about the bridges on the Cattail. A lot of the lumber out there on the ends is starting to cup in that. It's green treat lumber that tends to shrink and pull the screws. We've made contact with Wheeler Lumber. They are a wood bridge builder. We use for highways for a lot of products for wood that has more stable wood with their preservatives. That gentleman, Jake, is going to be out in the next couple of weeks to look at those bridge decks to give us options on more stable wood out there to alleviate that cupping process that we have right now on those. And then the other one we talked about was the Sawmill Trail down there between Clear Lake and Clayton. It's very overgrown right now. So we're going to be looking at getting some cost estimates on opening that trail back up, whether it be by a logger and a processor or hand work, but we're going to see about opening that trail back up so that we can actually maintain the surface of that trail. And that's the update for the ATV committees. If you have any questions on that one.
See any? Good. Okay, go to the next.
The Cattail Master Plan approval from DNR. Waiting on this one.
Take my time.
Good news is we did get
Ridden before.
Good news is we did get a reply back from the DNR on our request. The letter came back saying that the Cattail Master Plan had similar concerns as the Stour Plan. Okay, so what this drove was kind of kicking the can, but so Bob's staff was going back through the public comments when they did the master plan for both the Stour and the Cattail, laying out all the supplemental information that deals with the Cattail master plan. And we're going to submit that back to DNR. Okay, here's the backup evidence for our master plan. And then put them on to give us actual, okay, now what's wrong? If something's wrong with it, let us know. So that's the process we're in right now. So we did get an update. So we are moving forward with that, and Bob is working on pulling all that information out. So, and that's the status on that.
Had that it was 3 years into nothing. And there were good
I
parts.
thought you were going to fight.
I couldn't. It's 3 years to get nowhere. I just love it. All right, go to C. I don't even want to get it.
Item C is the fees for parks on there. And we are going to increase a couple fees on that. There's a slight increase we're going to do for the overnight parking. The $20 is for tent camping. The $30 going up $5 is for the electrical campsites. And then raising the reservations for the shelters from $40 to $50. Right now, you can go back to 2018 and look at our revenues and see where we stand around $3,000. That 2019, we had a little more increase of 3,600. 2020, COVID, naturally, we were closed. Estimating our revenues Right now for 2022, I'm estimating the revenues at 4,000. That might be a little shy. As of June, we've already had over $3,000 in park reservations. So we're doubling our revenues right now. So it's looking good, but with the slight increase, I did keep that number relatively modest there at $4,000 projected revenue. So that's our slight increase. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I just need a motion. It'll go to the board in August for approval then.
It has the piece, so that's, we want to pass this on for the budget, of course, for Vince to.
Correct.
To use it, okay.
I'm just curious. One day we were down toward Amory and we drove through the Apple River campground.
Mhm.
And I think that it was a weekday and there was 2 campers. Is that some of the numbers that are up that you're talking about?
Correct. Been doing fairly well with the park. We've had our issues down there with homeless people squatting and getting them out of there with the sheriff's department. But we have had quite a few reservations, and the weekends it seems to be a lot more people in there. Midweek is kind of slow, but the weekends we've had a lot of campers.
If there was a homeless sitting on the picnic table today,
They moved, Monday they were in the shelter. They moved
right toward
picnic shelters. It was yesterday.
these fees to me seem quite reasonable for what other campers.
Correct, and we didn't feel it jump those up right away. As we're working through making sure the park is clean and the vagrants are out of there so that we bring in the right clientele.
See, it has been raised since 15. Basically, those fees haven't been raised 6-7 years.
Correct.
I don't think, the state bike passes, we don't get, that's pretty much stays where it is, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to move this, say that, budget.
I'll make a motion with this. So it's in the budget. Second.
Okay, sure. Tracy, to, with the new changes, all those in favor then say aye. Opposed? All right, please, good. Thank you. Next month is, tax. Deed. Is it done then? Or is it another month?
Tax deed next month. Oh, you want the comprehensive list?
When, no, when does that come up? They're a month behind, aren't they? So we usually do it when? So this year's will come, not till next month, but
Not till next month,
till September.
unless
Okay.
Bob can answer that. Yeah.
We'll ask Amanda, but I think it's a month out yet. For the tax deed land to start
Yeah,
that
she's
process.
the treasurer's gonna convene a meeting late August.
So in September is when that comes. Okay. We don't get that too. Number 10, we are. Caitlin's gonna give it to us again.
You're back.
You're back.
Caitlin Anderson,
And Colton.
yes, we're back with the amendment to the do not transfer ordinance. Got up the redlining, and I think we went over most of this, we brought this up at the last meeting, but it isn't a whole lot of changes for the amendment to add decontamination, so that if there is a decontamination unit present at the boat landing, this I think is what's required. We added a definition for decontamination and then a definition for decontamination station. And the other change would be on the next page. Right here, under D, just saying if the decontamination station is available for use at public or private access, the board shall decontaminate equipment per posted directions using the decontamination station provided and or pursuant to the direction of decontamination personnel present. And then actually at our staff meetings, so this would be new since what was in the packet, so I apologize for that. But we talked about, instead of listing all of the, scroll down, all of this information, going through, what that amount would be and what information is required, instead just referring back to the penalties for violations in. That is nice because it makes it a lot shorter, I guess. So instead of adding more, making that shorter and then just using.
So that's that second page, 2, 3, and it's that whole page here too then, isn't it?
It would
Page,
be.
3, get rid of all that. So that it refers to the pages that we got.
Similar to what we did with chapter 26 with forestry and parks.
Put it all in.
We're referring it to the state forfeiture schedule.
And they're all the same.
And we have that, if you wanted to look at that, we have that we could bring up. That.
Thank you.
This is chapter 30, the forfeiture schedule. Those are the fees.
So just, I'm gonna ask Malik, that would help, wouldn't it, to refer that way?
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Updating it,
It'll evolve as it does, following along with that without constant action by.
Because then if they change it, it just automatically changes.
so
We do it as an appendix to have it there. We
I'm
don't
just referring it to, well, if you think about public protection, they would refer to chapter
We
30.
would just refer to it. Sure. Yeah, so if there's any, whenever the changes are, they change it. We're not doing it.
Right, we don't have to amend our ordinance
Our
every time
ordinance.
there's a change in fee schedule.
Does this need a public hearing?
It's not legally required, but it is something of public input.
Right, we put it on the agenda for your consideration. We learned that at the last meeting. It's an optional part of the process. There is some value to having public hearings, particularly with community outreach. The broader community providing input as well. So that's why it's in the agenda for your consideration. Granted, if we do a public hearing, this delays the process, which is fine.
I
But
think of the cost too, that the cost of a public hearing can be one time. Because I think that people assume this already.
Yeah, and I don't
I
think
think-
by having a public hearing, we're not, I mean, this year is over with for the most part anyway. There's not anything is going to happen. So I think
Time and staff time and all that, I think would be wasting. It'd be better to
really up to you.
take that step forward and put that money towards the sign.
and skip the public hearing.
Yeah, and skip the public hearing. I think most people assume this is there already. There's so many different kinds of signs at each one when you go there. I started noticing all the both ones. There's a different sign at every one.
Yeah.
But it all refers to that, so it'd be nice to get that one common one.
You need that for a minute.
What'd you say?
That wants to find, I'll give you a copy so you can find those.
Has
I
the,
think we're looking
have you
at this
gotten
one.
feedback? Have you gotten feedback from the lake associations?
We did talk about it at the PICFAR, so Polk County Association of Lakes and Rivers meeting, and folks were really favorable at that. And then she was like, right when I came back from maternity leave, in May, we worked together to send out an email to all of the lake districts and associations, letting them know that we could assist with, bring up a picture of that sign again too, with getting that sign up at the landing.
I guess kind of the sticking point for a lot of people on deciding not to do it was if there wasn't an ordinance enacted, they didn't really want to put the sign up yet. But I think there's a lot of interest.
It was only from the last meeting to now to
Yeah.
get that out. So I think now if we get it out, it can jump better. I think.
Yeah, and there is another PICFAR meeting coming up, so we could definitely provide an update at that to let folks know.
Sure.
And then we were talking, I think we mentioned at the last meeting, but just to reiterate, we do the Clean Boats, Clean Waters trainings, and so that would be a place too that we could let folks know about the change.
Caitlin, what, looking there on 30076 is that the one I was looking at? Let's see, order to transport or operate a vehicle, watercraft, or object. Would that pertain to the cleaning station?
And that's something that Bob and I were talking about yesterday too. So right now, the state doesn't require decontamination, so there wouldn't be one specifically that would say anything about a decontamination unit. But we talked about how some of these would still be able to be used, and up to the rec officer fine to give.
That's all I.
Yeah, there's-
have a meeting Cold Lake on the 21st. They will be able to. Why is that? How do I see it?
Right, the amendment would include that you would have to use decontamination.
Talk to public protection too, Tom Burrows. There are several options in this fee schedule for them to select.
Okay, that's all. I guess that's what I need is
Yeah.
what you said.
They don't have any issues in enforcement. And this is Don's words. Once the ordinance is passed. I don't know if you recall, but the last meeting, Kaylin shared some warning letters and violation report form. We shared that with the sheriff's department. And Don said he'd probably have his rec deputy not only incorporate those warning letters and violation report forms, but that the rec officer would follow up on those.
And I think like what we talked about is it mainly be citizens filling out the report form. And it kind of made it sound like the rec officer wouldn't be sitting there enforcing.
Would be sitting at the land.
Would be sitting at the landing for hours.
Complaint driven.
Unless there was occasion where that was.
Fishing contest, he might sit through some of that. But a lot of these places have people sitting there every day. And they do have them. There are like dozens of them, so they have somebody sitting there every day. Which is great.
Right, for Clean Boats, Clean Waters.
All right. So if we move this on,
It could be on the county board agenda in August.
it'd be this month if we move this forward. Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a resolution? We do have a resolution.
It is.
4021.
Resolution to move this forward.
Yeah.
So the first whereas, I actually went and looked at the resolution for the initial do not transfer ordinance, and so that end part is right from there, kind of about the reason for it, preventing the spread of these species, protect property values and property tax, and then ensuring quality recreation. And then the following ones is whereas Polk County now has water bodies infested with zebra mussels, whereas protection of Polk County water bodies require effort beyond the scope of the current ordinance in order to address the infestation of zebra mussels, whereas decontamination of watercraft and equipment provides a higher level of protection. So that's kind of the reason to add the decontamination is that's really the best way, which we didn't have in Polk County up until.
Sure.
And therefore be it resolved that.
So now for any funding to help, that would come differently, would it not? Doesn't come in this resolution. You know, to help fund with the signs.
We do that in the budget process.
We do that in the budget process.
It's in the park CIP for $7,200 to install the signs at the Polk County.
Then we got a few to go through to find out if we're not.
Which,
Yeah.
so Kim, I had looked into that. Remember you came in after the meeting and we talked about the where it, like, no parcels found on the county layer.
Yep.
So that is in the town plat. So if it's not, it doesn't say a parcel owned, then it is township property. So those accesses to the water would still be, that'd be a township access. If it's owned by Polk County or like the DNR, it will say on the parcel map owned by Polk County or Wisconsin. Yeah, so if it's not, it says no parcels found, township.
Like
So
the
we
Deer
can
Lake
contact some
Wax,
townships that do these signs, that if they have them. Okay.
like the Deer Lake is township.
This township, well, I was up like White Ash, North White Ash.
Yeah, North White Ash has two, one on each side. Yeah. And what that was talking with Steve is, well before my time, they had every half mile of lakeshore there had to be a public access.
There's some that come.
And that's what you're seeing now. And they usually put those in like the worst spot because it's the most least desirable land. So that's what it is.
They ended up. Sure. Okay, so at least we know that.
We own the one on the north of that.
Yeah, where they're weeding now, but not the one on the east side.
Correct.
There's 5 landings on.
Yeah, there's a bunch. But a couple of them are on 40-foot hills. It just runs out and it drops 40 feet. So you canoe, you can get down there, but it's hell to get out. But that's with that half mile. That 30-foot strip.
And the landings that we had talked about with that budget request would be for Long Trade, Magner, Little Mere, or Pickerel, whatever you call it. I call it Pickerel, but it's officially Little Mere, Little Butternut, Black Brook, Staples, Lotus, and White Ash.
So any on the apple, that's a byproduct.
Black Brook, that's the one.
Is it on the Floyd? It's on the back.
You remember what road that is?
The,
Then if we let all the other lake associations that know and get that sign, so they're all the same. I think that's what's huge too. That matches the trees around.
so how many of them did you say were county owned?
There's 8. Long Trade, Magner, Little Mere, Pickerel, Little Butternut, Black Brook, Staples, Lotus, and White Ash.
We have 9 county boat landings, but it's gonna cost us $7,200 to put a sign on them.
It's cost of the sign painted. And the installation.
Yeah.
Is that 4x8?
4x8. In
They're
those,
like 4x8 signs. So the cost of the sign.
Yeah, the sign,
They got the cost.
for a Sign Express does go down if you order more, like it's like if you order over 7 signs, it's like $100 off each sign. What it was. And I did talk with Sign Express about possibly downgrading the sign because at some landings, well, it has to be 75 feet back because it's over 4x4 basically. And some landings that may possibly not work. So if we did downsize to a 3x5, that same sign, the downsizing would work correctly to go from 4x8 to 3x5 to put within 75 feet of the water for some specific landings. But some of them could be cheaper too, I guess, depending on the situation. But we'd like to have the 4x8 sign.
she had a major one, smaller ones.
But it is an option.
Yeah, the biggest cost is the printing of the sign. And this would be what the sign would look like. The nice thing is it's already designed, so we don't worry about that at all. And then there was that other picture too. If you go back, it would be the next. Yeah.
So these
That one
ones,
shows the actual, what it would look like.
So, yeah.
So there's a few tools, a bleach sprayer in a bucket, but the biggest cost really is. And then we did add a little bit of cost just with the price of lumber going up.
I would come at the budget when you go look at these and stuff. Basically, it's to move it. See if the other lakes will jump in to keep the price down to get all this.
Right. Yeah, that would make it cheaper. So we would get somewhat of a discount.
Yeah, you'd already get $100 off each sign. And I'm not sure how much more it goes up, because actually what I learned is these signs would be pretty easy to print in 4x8, because that's actually the size that their sheets come in. So when you get a sign that's less than that, they actually have to cut it out of a 4x8 sheet. Basically, all they do is just put the, I guess I don't know, if it's like film or straight over the sheet that they purchased.
We thought if we half the size of the sign, it would be a lot cheaper, but because this is the size.
So the 3x5, she said, would be, somewhat cheaper, but, not gonna be way cheaper just because of.
Sure. We just need what, a motion to remove it. Do we need the full board for this? Or we just do it? Tell them later. I would take the board.
Yeah, there isn't.
Yeah, she's asking.
The
us to
recommendation.
go to the board. I know.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 40-21.
That can be done in August. All right. Is there a second? Tracy? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So that takes care of B for you. Have to set a public. Skip it. Save that money for the sign. Just what you wanted was a public hearing.
Thank you, guys.
Perfect, thank you.
Number 11. Bob.
Right. Morning, everyone. If you don't mind, I'll do it from here because
Yep, that's good.
Mark is currently being audited by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
He's in trouble.
Well,
We've seen him for the last time.
He's in that much trouble. All right.
we met the auditing team. They're out looking at 12 sites to evaluate the management and the health of our county forest. So yeah, he's preoccupied. So I'll lead this discussion. This, as you all recall, is our third attempt to update Chapter 26, Parks and Recreational Code, to align with state statutes, as our chairman had asked us to do, and the 15-year plan. We did a lot of work up until now. In fact, we're down to just a few edits. And in fact, I just want to acknowledge both Malia and Joe collaborating with us to clarify and do those statutory edits. So I'll just quickly walk you through if that's okay. What we have left to look at is what's highlighted in yellow. Again, there's not a lot there. Go to page 2. Some minor edits in reference to the statute. And then also in section 26-22, same reference. County forest law, we had the incorrect statute there. So Malia helped us with that. So that statute 28-14 sub 4 applies to counties. I think we had the statute that applied to towns the last time we reviewed this. Again, that's there. And then again, we had that same reference. 3. Clean that up. And really, I guess the biggest piece is page 4, which is timber theft and other prohibited conduct. This, we gave a different heading. It was timber cutting prohibited. Basically, nothing in this provision really limits the authority to recreate or hunt or collect, raspberries or whatnot. Basically, we just added any unauthorized practices and we struck the rest. And that will be, if you notice, that's in that first sentence. Building any structures, putting a septic system, doing agriculture on forest land, shooting lanes. or unnecessary removal of vegetation. So that is, again, aligns with the 15-year plan as well as state statutes. So we made that change. That's probably the biggest edit outside of section 26, 29. I think that's on page 6, where we defined an elevated device, which really is a deer stand. So we cleaned that up. And then we also,
F there, we should have that. You have to have your name on that camera or your DNR customer number.
yeah, that's in C. Yeah,
That would the.
yeah, that,
but
you
it's
can't
not with
place
the
a
game-
deer stand. I'm
So
sorry.
the game cameras
Well, the game
also
camera,
have to have that.
they also have to have an identification number,
Yeah, they have to be
Really?
identified also.
similar to C there, where
Yep.
you need
But
the
you have to have your
DNR
DNR.
customer ID number. You trust me to add that?
I
Just
did it on
ensure that-
mine, so it better show up.
I'll put it in there.
Because we gotta go back a page, there's a line, it doesn't make sense.
Back a page.
Page 5, 12, go down to number 3. That license 4-wheel, and it says logging trails, and then it just says fire. And unless you change that. Vehicle use, D, I'm on page 5,
Yeah.
Yeah,
top of the page, D.
E, yeah.
But you're on E, I'm on D, go up.
Yeah.
If we're D, then there it says fire lanes, I have a number 3, that's a number 4, number 3. See where it ends with fire on the line, number 3?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't
It
say
ends
fire
with fire.
It
Oh,
doesn't say fire lanes.
okay.
We want to add access roads in there because that's what we have to name it if they're not trails. We're gonna add that, so should we put access roads in that, in those?
Right, because that's what we labeled them.
That's, we're gonna label some access roads, so we should maybe throw that in there.
Right before tote roads.
Yep.
Okay.
Because otherwise we don't call them tote roads or anything else, but we're gonna call them access roads because you can't call it a trail, so we should maybe add that in that section.
We do. Good catch.
Because I think I ran out of paint.
Was that highlighted in orange by you?
It was.
Oh, it's not wait till the end. That was the 2 I could read. 'Cause I knew the cameras had to have that too.
We'll make sure that's correct. I'm sure it is, but we'll add that. If you trust me to do that, I will.
I think that's everywhere on it.
And then page 8, the last sentence was unapplicable. And basically, we struck the first sentence in sub 3 and defined what an amplified system is. That's pretty ambiguous. So anything that's amplifies sound, is an instrument, or produce noises that annoy, disturb someone. It's tough to measure that. But we thought it'd be helpful to define an amplified system. So we added that. And really, that's it, outside of, again, the last page, which is the timber theft. We added one more reference to the state forfeiture schedule. That's been added.
Now,
Fairly
go back
clean.
to 2650, page 10.
There.
Up a little bit because it's the last one, H. Better read that, makes sense. Shall be permitted at any one campsite, including the camping unit, if
There is a motor vehicle.
So if the camping unit is a motor vehicle, you can only have one more vehicle. But I mean, the wording is pretty, not very well there.
No more than 2 motor vehicles shall be permitted at any one campsite, including the camping unit,
One camp, including the camping unit, if is so
If it
if
is,
what?
if it is a motor vehicle,
Okay, so we'd have
if it is,
a motor vehicle, yeah,
if it is a motor vehicle,
one campsite, so you only have two vehicles. So that's if you had a big RV and stuff, you could have that and another. We have to, that camping unit is a motor. Gotta clean that line up, so
Okay.
that's,
if it is a motor vehicle.
is a motor vehicle. Yeah, I think so, gotta clean it up, so it makes sense, just jump at it.
Thank you. Like that.
If you have a town motor home,
Mhm.
so you just have to clean it, it's a camping unit, it's a motor vehicle, so you gotta take if the or something out.
Right.
Make it a little more readable. That's all I marked up.
You can just strike the.
Yeah,
It's
something.
happening if.
It is a motor vehicle, something. Just, I mean, you read it and you just kind of go like, what are you trying to say here? It's. Yeah.
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 Done, change it together.
So that's it. I mean, would you like me to bring it back with these minor edits, or would you be
Oh, I think
comfortable
That's pretty.
packaging it with resolution 3621? Consider a county board in August.
I don't think we'd have to bring it back with those.
So I think it's good.
Probably catch some other stuff later. or something.
Oh, that's undoubtedly. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just a start, but it is a start.
No, do we need a motion to move this forward? To the board then?
I'll make the motion.
Because we have it. We have a first and a second. This one forward then. All those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And my only other mark is,
Yes, sir.
since Leah, all these signatures, we don't know who they are. We need their names printed under each line. Even here, if somebody signs resolution, who signed that? I happen to know who it is, so I know who signed it.
I noticed that too.
How about Doug? You know, see,
I actually made that comment to my wife this morning that I didn't know who signed that. So scribbled on.
Yeah.
And she said, well, isn't the name underneath there? I said,
No.
no. I think we got to do that on the other ones too, even though we know who you are.
Like this one, I figured it started with a C, so it's either Chad or Chris. But
Yeah, but it could be anybody. I just think if they do it, but I mean, even over here,
Yeah,
if somebody else is there. It's Elias, you can read yours when you stamp it, but Joe might sign it too, so. But I think if we put the names under there so people can tell, otherwise people call and ask, well, who did sign that? I mean, either they're not signed or it's signed, but you can't read it, so it doesn't make a difference.
I like that suggestion.
That's all I think. Okay, we did 12. 11 moved on. We're gonna have a forester after today.
What's that?
Have a forester after today. So
So just to recap, I guess we're sending 4 resolutions, is that correct, to the county board for the August consideration. We're doing 3621, that's chapter 26 of the parks, just what we had talked. And then we have 3921, which Supervisor Chairman Nelson.
feel good.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the decontamination, 40-21. And then the district change for the town of Clayton, 41. We have 4 resolutions going to the August County. Have you signed all of those, Chairman
No,
O'Connell?
not yet.
Okay, we'll make sure before you leave,
Yeah,
you get them all.
they're signed. And I think the zoning change can be in the consent agenda, so that saves a little bit.
Okay.
Been doing them.
Yep.
What did we skip that we gotta put on next one?
Well, I know there's no zoning hearings on the 18th. However, again, that's our next meeting, August 18th. We are going to address the amendments to the shoreline ordinance for the towns that have enacted town zoning. By the way, we've been trying to get a hold of Farmington. Again, they're one of the 3 zone towns. So we don't know what their perspective is on that. Even if you want to help.
I'll stop there. Maybe
Oh,
one day
East
I'll stop.
College. I mean, that would be a good idea.
Don't tell me what he thinks.
Yes, you will.
It's got it.
And then the travel trailer park models within the shoreline comprehensive ordinance, so we'll bring that because that needs a public hearing. So that will be on the zoning piece of the agenda. And then, the town of St. Clair Falls also has a request to change their definition of mobile storage containers. So that will be on.
That's one that we do and probably just push through.
Yeah, that's just a definition change, what I've been told.
You write that ordinance, it's it. Okay, well. Lawyer to lawyer. That one's coming, that's the one coming.
So yeah, there's 3 zoning agenda items, not needing a public hearing, but that will be on the August 18th agenda. We'll have Tim back, if that's okay, to update you on the, our work with consultant Alta and the comprehensive trail network plan. If you don't mind, Mo, will there be a need for Mo? The UTV-ATV committee met yesterday. TAG will not be meeting till after that. So we might not have to have 8A, but 8B.
Back either.
Well, no, I think we'll have our work done.
Okay.
Mo did a great job explaining where we're at. So we're basically not rewriting the submitted Cattail master plan from 3 years ago. We're just filling in the gaps. We're more proficient at it now. We understand what deficiencies may or may not be. So and again, we have the data from public input. So that there might be an update on that.
All right.
And so that might be on. Again, we talked about the 3 zoning items. I think that's all.
Forestry, will he come back and give us a update of what was
Update on
audit
the
plans and everything? Might not
I
have-
know.
Yeah, he might not have anything yet. Yeah, they work so fast.
So, yeah, that's what I have. Looking forward, particularly the February 15th meeting, I mean, that's when we'll have Alta's laundry list or full list of potential projects. We have our representative from the National Heritage Area presenting. So I know in September, some items. To be honest with you, Chairman O'Connell, if you think about it, the Jason's facilitation of rewriting that shoreline zoning ordinance for the towns, that's going to take a while. That's going to be at least
Yeah, it's gonna
So-
be,
That might take 2 meetings, so that's gonna be the big bulk of next month.
but anyway. All right. Well, then Vince will have that August dealing what land we're gonna sell and keep the whole county. That's coming up. That's it.
We've got it.
We get a bigger list.
Yeah.
You're making it bigger. What are you doing?
We just need to know what.
Every year, we're supposed to decide if we're gonna keep it or sell it. That's one of our duties forever, for planning. And you're gonna say you don't have anything for sale.
Why don't you,
You're gonna say we don't have anything for sale. Do you have a list for each of us?
We'll take a look. It hasn't
Where's my
changed.
color?
There's, as you take a look at these though, remember that some of them will say tax deed on them. But if this was tax deed property sold this year, it will not come off the books until next year. So even if you look at the GIS map on, say, the lime quarry, for example, it'll still say it's owned by Polk County.
Sure.
So,
And then the new forest land we bought probably didn't get switched yet either.
correct.
But those are the ones that get changed that we
Right.
know. of.
Right, most of those properties in that spreadsheet have a descriptor. They're either right away or county forest or campus here. Some don't. So are you asking us to look at those that are outside of,
Well, do we have a 40 acres that we want to sell? Do we want to sell that forest land back?
So that's the question.
If not,
We-
he says,
we have
have
a suggestion. for
we got
selling.
nothing for sale. If you don't have a suggestion, we got nothing for sale. That's what I say. Do we want to sell a building or not? Or do we want to lease it? Do we want to sell that to WITC? Now their new name, Northwest. That's basically what the planning committee is supposed to do, is look at that. And he says, no, there's nothing for sale this year. Okay, but we still have the list of what we own. So it kind of goes that way.
And
You
if
know,
you all
do
find,
we have some vacant land? Because we found some vacant spots that were on this list, like we held it for the park, the one up in Watt. Remember how we started finding all these weird pieces? Yeah. Woodley Dam sat on it for 8, 10 years. And that's how we found out. We got rid of it. That's what we're trying to minimize.
We'll see one on there that says Woodley Dam, but actually that's the acreage we kept for the snowmobile trail.
The parking lot.
Through there, as
Yeah.
a parking lot and that trail easement.
8 acres.
Yeah,
Bridge that 8 acres.
but that's how we started. All of a sudden you're going through here, we got 12 acres of block. We got this, like, we got that. We're going like, where is it? What's it for? So we decided to sell all that. So it doesn't sit here, not know what it's for. Actually, nobody's offered to buy land, or
right, if you all find something on here that you have a question about, give us a heads up.
then we can look. So the biggest thing is, you have my blue one, so I know what you have and took on. Or did you throw my list?
Gave that to, you still have his
I
original.
have, I'll give it to
You
you.
have
after
no
the-
one?
Yeah,
See, I
I have
had
no
that
one.
marked so I could, did we add or subtract? 'Cause the line quarry's gone.
Let's get it back to you, yeah. We'll get it back to you.
This way now we'll have, we pretty much have it after that one. That we're, because this took a while to make. That first step. Yeah. Okay. But it's surprising that we do it that much. Okay, so if anybody has quite, that would be your update, would say, we don't have anything for sale.
We can do that next week.
Yeah. Yeah, that you went through the list and boom, we did our statutory, whatever. Checking all our plans. Okay. She did go in blind list. We'd have. Anything else? Can anybody think of anything else that's gonna come up? Anything else in our work deal? 'Cause we
Yeah,
had
can I just give you a
the
quick
budget
update?
stuff.
Oh, yes, I met with finance last week. And submitted all 4 budgets. Talked through the additional funding requests and we landed with finance and accounting. We were able to keep all expenditures under 3%, including labor. So, and then with a flat levy. And
Sure.
Going to be Well, if you don't mind, I just wanted to point out, we had a fair display, Land and Water did. Thank you for coming by, for those who did. Nice to see you all. Really well attended. We had an invasive species display where actual invasives, live invasives were displayed, and a lot of questions. A lot of folks from Minnesota. A lot of folks asking questions about our shoreline regulations, how it's different from Minnesota, buffer zones and ag areas, things of that nature. So I think it was a worthwhile effort. And we hadn't been there since 2014. So it was nice.
It was in a good spot, I thought.
Our old spot there, I think. We had remnants of the old prairie grass. We'll probably try to move those for next. Thanks for coming by the booth.
I'll second that. Okay. Oh, there's the guy. Say hi to my brother. No sound.
Pretty bad when we gotta stay in the meeting for a lack of